Welcome to the 44th live stream in our space shooter DevVenture. So in our last session, I'm just trying to recap to do a recap here, and I don't seem to remember exactly what we were busy with. So why don't we ask Perplexity to remind us? It's there for that purpose. So let's ask Perplexity. Please remind me, what was the last thing we talked about? And then we'll say include the last task I worked on and some of the other tasks that are high priority in this thread. So here's a summary of the last discussion and your current priority task for this thread. The last thing we talked about was sharing your implementation of the activate function in behavior_shoot.gd. I reviewed it and we confirmed that your approach matched the modular behavior logic and initialization outlined previously. We discussed ensuring proper parameter handling, activation checks like the target or gun system, making the function robust for expansion like burst shots, custom ranges, etc. Your latest task is to work on the shoot behavior. My mistake. Was to work on the shoot behavior pattern for enemy ships. And in that vein, implementing, refining, and testing the activate function in behavior_shoot.gd, and making the behavior modular and state aware for your AI layer transitions. Other high priority tasks for this thread include completing the flee behavior state, establishing clear transitions and signal-driven handoffs between seek, shoot, flee, and break states, and expanding and integrating the pattern cancellation or deactivation for robust behavior or AI management within enemy ship controller and NPC behavior manager. That was quite a lot of words. But yeah, basically we need to be able to make sure that at every layer in the AI control system that we are able to cancel or deactivate or have the so-called break state in our graph. And if you remember what I spoke about, it was this, right? So we've got seek, shoot, flee, seek, shoot, flee, seek, shoot, flee, and once the thing is destroyed or defeated or whatever else, then break, right? So we need to make the break state actually work, and that's what it's talking about. And then later tasks is to deepen behavior complexity like burst attacks, status effects, tactical feedback, and then also to add in modular hooks for easy extension and new behaviors, right? So that would then lend itself to an upgrade system with weapon improvements, adding on new weapons, ship upgrades, and all of those cool things. So we need to obviously lay the groundwork for that first, right? Build the foundations, have the the scaffolds and things in place. Then we can start building those features. I don't like building on experimental features and new features and all those kind of things without having a good foundation, unless the thing I'm implementing has not been done before. Right? So in this case, a weapon upgrade system has been done to death in all kinds of games all over the world and all over time, right? Across the history of game development and gaming, right? There have been major improvements and some like comprehensive work in player progression and RPG mechanics, right? So upgrade systems and weapon creation and crafting and inventory management and all of that kind of stuff. It's all been done, right? So there's not much experimentation going on there for me in this project, right? Nor do I want there to be, right? In this project, I don't want to be experimenting too much with those things, because you have to have stability in some areas of your project if you're going to experiment in others, right? And so, and the reason for that, of course, is you don't want to, right? You should be prepared to, but you don't want to have to discard your entire project if it doesn't work out. Okay. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true, right? This is the whole principle of prototyping. And we are still very much in the prototyping phase. So you want to be able to prototype your ideas, your game design, right? In such a way that if something doesn't work out, you discard that something and not the entire project. Okay. So when you're going into a project, you should be prepared to scrap the whole thing if you need to. Okay. But you need to have mitigation strategies in place to prevent that, right? That you don't have to discard the entire project, that only some parts of your project get discarded, if any, right? And then you've got mitigation strategies against scrapping something if it's just a small piece, right? So the prototype that you're building, you have risks and mitigations for that. And then you've got bigger risks and mitigations for the module, and you've got even bigger risks and mitigations for the game as a whole, right? Now, one of those mitigation strategies is where you add instability through experimentation and prototyping in some area, you need to add stability and predictability and reliability in another area, right? So do the tried and trusted thing in something and try something completely novel and new and experimental somewhere else. And so that when that experimental thing fails, if it does, then your entire project hasn't fallen apart because you've still got some stable things that you can build on. Okay? Now, I hope you understand what I'm saying, because I'm just going to carry on now. My point is, we'll build this, we'll add onto the complexity. But we first need to have these modular hooks and extension foundations, fundamentals, right? Things like, can the miner actually get minerals and resources from asteroids yet? No, it can't, right? And we need to add that in so that once it goes and starts attacking a mining object like an asteroid with the grinder barrel, it should be accumulating some type of resource, right? Depending on the type of mining object, right? So if it's an iron asteroid, it should be gathering iron ore. If it's corundum, corundum is the material that makes rubies and sapphires. The second hardest on, a 9 on the Mohs hardness scale, second only to diamond, right? And so let's say you want to start mining corundum so that you can improve your grinder barrel so you can start mining even more serious asteroids, right? You can't just go against a corundum asteroid if your grinder barrel isn't up to the task. You see what I mean, right? So you want to be able to have that progression, that you start off with this really low grade grinder barrel that can cut through the softer asteroids, and then you build up as you go. You build up resources, you start researching, and you start upgrading, and eventually you work up through multiple iterations of upgrades towards something like a corundum barrel or a polycrystalline diamond barrel, right? That can then cut through basically any asteroid, no problem. And so on. But obviously first you need to be able to mine the asteroid. And so we can damage an asteroid and we've got the mechanics to make the barrel spin, but we don't have anything to gather resources yet. We don't have any mechanics for the mining vessel to deposit those gathered resources anywhere. So we need to add in a capital ship first. Although for now it doesn't have to be a full-on capital ship. It can just be a point in the scene that the mining vessel has to return to. Right? And then it needs to offload its cargo and then start going to mine again. So we need to add this in. Then once we have that, now we've got some so-called farming or mining mechanics, right? And then you can start gathering resources, then you can start spending resources, right? And once you can start spending resources, now you can start working on things that you can so-called buy with those resources. Now you're getting towards an upgrade system, right? And then once you have the upgrade system, you can start adding in the different upgrades, right? So you've got this upgrade tree, or skill tree, or technology tree, whatever you want to call it, and off you go, right? So you've got your branches, you've got your specializations, you've got your requirements, like level requirements, material requirements, whatever requirements you have, right? And then once you have those, now you've got an upgrade system, right? And you see the progression, right? You see that there are steps we need to take. And it's all very well thought out, and it's all pretty much cast in stone, or set in stone, whatever you want to, like, inscribed in stone, however that saying goes, right? I think it's set in stone. The point is, it's now done. It's a done deal. It's basically, this is how it's going to be, and not much is going to change in this implementation, right? There's not much uncertainty. There's not much risk. Therefore, there isn't much need for any type of agility. We can just take it as it goes, follow it very routinely, go through the steps, and it's done, right? And then in other areas that we need to develop experimentally, that's where prototyping and agile development and all of those things come in. You take it small steps at a time, evaluating every step you take, and you make sure that you're not investing too many resources in something that isn't going to work out for you. Okay? And if it doesn't work out and you do have to scrap it, so be it. You've got this upgrade system to fall back on, right? And then you can actually take this upgrade system and use it to make a pivot, right? So you're like, oh, okay, so we're not going to do this particular version of Project AstroMiner anymore. Let's do a pivot towards something else, right? So what works from what we have? Oh, all these stable systems and things that we've implemented. Okay, let's use that. And we'll do a pivot towards this particular angle, and we'll make the game in this way because we've already got all these things, right? We just have to add on these things, and maybe we can experiment in some small way over here, right? So we add some more stability on, and then we start playing around with an experimental feature, right? And so now you can kind of see that we have these mitigation strategies in place to protect the project as a whole, so that we don't fail completely, right? And that everything is safe in the long run anyway, right? Now, I've taken quite a lot of time explaining this, so I hope you do understand what I'm saying, because I realize that a lot of these live streams, I end up talking a lot and not doing much. And I can see how frustrating that must be for some of you. So I do thank you for your forbearance and for bearing with me on this. Now let's continue, right? So let me know if you want to continue with the shoot or move on to building the fleas, the so-called flea behavior. Let's finish the shoot. Okay, let's work on finishing the shooting mechanics for the enemy ship. Enemy ship AI system. I want to get to a state where I can run a scene with all the stakeholders doing their parts, right? I want the miner to mine, the defender to defend, and the pirate to pirate. And yes, that is a valid statement. if someone pirates some software or pirates copyrighted material somehow, that's a verb, right? So it is working, you know, the pirate to pirate, right? It sounds a bit funny, but it works. Okay. What was I saying? I want to have all the various stakeholders doing their parts, and this results in a low fidelity first playable. That I could use to raise awareness for the game and prototype the existing mechanics. While we continue developing the foundations of the more advanced branches of the game. That's an excellent and focused goal. Here's how we can quickly bring your enemy ship AI shooting mechanics and general core loop to a low fidelity first playable state, where all stakeholders or minimum agents interact in their basic roles. So we have the step-by-step plan for a minimum viable combat loop, right? So first we need to finalize the shooting behavior. Then we need to confirm that each stakeholder behaves as they should. Then we need to enable the pattern transitions and their ends. So we have to have break states for each pattern and handle their transitions correctly. Then we need to set up the scene for testing and debug while testing, right? Then we have to have a quick iteration / polish. And we're basically done then. We have our first playable, and you guys and all the other people who happen to come across our first playable can test the game, play for it, play for yourself, see what it's like, and give me feedback, right? And then we can iterate on that. While you're busy testing, giving me feedback, I can work on other facets or factors or whatever you want to call it, sections, modules, subsections, systems of the game. And once I've gathered enough feedback from you guys, and I have the so-called popular demand for the adjustments and iteration, then we'll do a second version of that playable, a second playable, third playable, fourth playable, and we'll keep iterating like that until you are satisfied with that version, and then we'll build on it, right? So once you're satisfied with that, then we can add on the things that I've been working on in the meantime, add them in, and you guys can iterate on that, and so we'll build our game, so we'll build this game. And once it's reached a point where it's demo worthy, then I can take it forward to Kickstarter, and we can get support for development funding. I can get people to fund the development of the game, and then I can go into making this game knowing that there is demand for it, knowing that there is actually an audience for this game that wants to see it through, and that my efforts are being remunerated in the process, because this is something that I am doing full-time, and I would very much like to see that I'm making money from it. It's really helpful to have the motivation from your support as the audience, yes, but it also helps a lot to know that this is my job and I'm being paid for it, you know what I mean? So that helps. Anyway, let's go through the details of step 1, right? So this is what we're working on now. So let's focus on this. First, we need to finalize the shooting behavior. right? We need to make the pirate or defender AI entities. So if you're playing as a pirate, the defender is the AI. If you're playing as a defender, then the pirate is an AI. And if you're playing as a miner, then the pirate is an AI again. The only time the miner isn't an AI is if you're playing as a miner. So, and I think for the purposes of our first playable, I would prefer not having the option to play as the mining vessel until we have everything sorted out on the other two. And then once those are done, because again, like I said, it's going to be an entirely different game mode. Excuse me. An entirely different game mode, which fits almost into an entirely separate genre, right? It's going to be more horror, more thriller, more suspense, right? More prey versus predator. And so you're going to have to I'm going to have to think very carefully about how to set that mood very well, right? That you feel like prey, that you don't feel like some kind of superhero or some kind of predator or hunter that's out on the lookout for its next, for its next so-called quarry or victim or whatever you want to call it, right? Now, that means that the mining vessel has to be AI driven in every mode until we make the miner version, right? Until we make the mining vessel mode. So when you're playing as a defender, the miner is still an AI. And when you're playing as a pirate, the miner is still an AI. And that AI needs to be consistent, right? It needs to be consistent, regardless of the mode, because again, the game feel for the defender as opposed to the pirate might differ, right? So when you're playing as a defender, you might feel more like a superhero, or maybe not a superhero, like a knight, like a heavily armored knight. Because you've got the armor, you've got the guns, you've got the maneuverability, you've got all of those things, and you have an upgrade system built specifically or optimized specifically to making you a good fighter or an all-around combat specialist, right? Whereas with a pirate, it's more scavenger, predator, scavenger, bounty hunter kind of character, keep your wits about you. You're not the top gun, you don't have all the best weapons, you don't have much armor, you don't even have mining equipment, you're an opportunist, you are a scavenger, you are fast and agile, but you're not heavily armored. So you're kind of like a rogue, if you were to think of classic RPG archetypes, right? You've got the paladin who is the defender, right? The defender is like this paladin character or a knight, heavily armored, with plate armor and a big sword and all of these cool things, right? Like a sword and a shield, and he's got good strong defense and strong attack, but no mining equipment, no cargo, nothing. He's just a warrior, right? And then you've got the pirate, which is more like a rogue, like a thieving rogue. He's got daggers, light armor, and one of those loot sacks on his back. But he doesn't own a pickaxe, so so he has to go and rob the miners when they're coming back from the mine on the way to wherever they drop off their cargo. Again, I'm following the RPG archetypes. And so your light armor, light weapons, no mining equipment, and you've got cargo. And so you are quick and agile, and you can shoot really fast, but you don't deal a lot of damage, and you take a huge amount of damage if you're hit, right? So your play style is going to be different. You're going to be nippy, and you're going to be zippy, and you're going to come in and go out, and you're going to basically fly around like a little bee or a wasp. I think a wasp makes more sense, right? You're basically a wasp, right? You're buzzing around and you're stinging someone, and then you buzz away again, and then you avoid any kind of swatting, and you come back and you sting again, and you go away before they swat you. And if you're talking about the miner, you're feeling very much like prey. You can't maneuver very well. You're not very agile. You're basically traveling in straight lines almost, and you're slow, and you don't have any weapons, and your visibility is limited because you can't turn around and look around everywhere, right? You're relying on your sensors and your prospector's ping to tell you where the asteroids are. But when you do that, you give your position away. So anyone who's close enough to pick up on your prospector's ping will know where you are. And all of those things. So I realized that I went off on a long a long digression. So let me come back to this, right? So we need to finalize the shooting behavior, make sure that the Pyro to Defender AI entities can detect and acquire their targets correctly, transition to the shoot pattern while they are in range, that they can fire projectiles at their targets, and return to seek or initiate flee as needed, right? Ensure the shoot behavior is robust, fires when ready, emits completion signals, and reacts to the target state. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now, as you can see, step 1 is a very loaded step. It's got quite a lot of requirements. It's got the those 4 bullet points over here, and it's got this one over there. We can break that down further. Okay, now that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to break it down even further, and I'm going to find out, where is all the work? Excuse me for yawning. Where is all the work, and what needs to be done now, like now, as in now, like this session. So let me try and diagnose that. Okay, so let's ask Perplexity to help us break down step 1 into lower level instructions and see where is all the work going to be, and what should we focus on first. So let's do that. Let's work on step 1. I want to find out where the work I want to find out where is all the work in this step. Please break down step 1 into lower level instructions and help me identify which areas require the most attention and where we should begin with this process. Okay, so now we've got our detailed breakdown of step 1, right? So step 1.1, for finalizing the shooting behavior, step 1.1 is that we need to have AI target detection and pattern transition, right? So we need to find code and logic where AI ships identify their targets, and then ensure transitions from seek to shoot are triggered based on proximity and line of sight, and that there's and here we say there's attention required here, that robustness of target acquisition, the way it's phrased is really irritating for me to read back to you guys. So we need to give attention to the robustness of target acquisition, and we need to give attention to responsive transitions. Those are the two things we need to focus on. And then here we have shoot behavior activation. So check the interface and signal chain for activating the shoot behavior via the tactical layer. Excuse me for yawning again. This room is quite stuffy, and I tend to get sleepy in stuffy rooms. Unfortunately, I can't open the doors because it's quite noisy outside. So if I do that, then the noise comes through, and that kind of spoils things. So just bear with me if I start yawning every now and then. Okay, the fan is on, and I'm doing my best. So thank you for your patience. So check the interface and signal chain for activating the shoot behavior via the tactical layer, so that we have pattern assignment. So things like, are the parameters like target or range, are they set up correctly, and is the correct method being called with actionable data? And then where is our attention required? We need to make sure that activate always receives valid targets and can respond to loss of target or misconfiguration. Then we've also got 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6. So there's quite a lot of work here. Yeah, that's one of the things with breaking a task down, right? It looks like it's a lot of work when you see it as a high-level step, right? Oh, we need to do the shoot mechanics, and you're like, oh, that sounds like a lot. It sounds like this huge problem to be solved. Where do I even start? And then you think about how you're going to break it down into smaller steps, and then each of those you think about how you're going to break those down into smaller steps, and you keep breaking it down, right? From a boulder to rocks, to stones, to pebbles, to dust, right? And once you break a boulder down into dust, you realize just how much dust there is. And then you start to feel, well, dusty. Oh, I was going to say dirty, but dusty, right? Then you realize, oh no, now there's every single grain of dust that I have to deal with. And it's a lot, right? But you kind of knew that from the start, right? When you looked at the high-level picture, you knew it was a huge boulder, but you didn't know how to tackle the boulder. At least with dust, you can kind of figure out how to deal with the dust, right? You can get a scoop and brush, or a vacuum cleaner, or you could bring some water, turn the dust into some type of mud or sludge, and scoop it all together into a pile. There's all kinds of ways you can deal with dust, right? So yeah, so there are 6 steps inside step 1, and as you can see in each of these steps, there are at least 3 smaller steps. Okay, here's 2, here's 3, although that's kind of 4 steps, right? Step 1.2.1 has 2 steps inside. So 1.2.1a, 1.2.1b. Forget all of the other steps. Let's focus just on step 1.1, right? Actually, no. Where is the work? Right? This is what we were asking. We wanted to know, where is the work and where should we start? right? What should we give our attention to the most? So the most intense work is usually in pattern transitions and correct activation of shoot. So step 1.2, and inside aim, line of sight, and firing logic of step 1.3, and the handling error and completion cases in step 1.5. So the common pitfalls is the mistaken state or transition logic causes agents to so-called stall, right? Or signals are not being properly connected, or that projectiles are not always being instantiated or hitting. The parameters are not correctly passed downstream. So these are the common pitfalls we need to look out for. And these are the areas we need to give the most attention to. So when I said we should focus on step 1.1, I was wrong, clearly. We should focus on step 1.2 before step 1.1. Okay, but with all that aside, let's see what Perplexity says about where to begin. Right? Start by confirming and debugging the pattern transition and shoot activation. This lays your foundation and uncovers missing or weak links early. Then fix or implement aim and line of sight and projectile firing so shots are visible and functionally correct. And finally, add robust completion error handling and test multiple AI at once. That's important, I agree, right? Because the pirates are flying as a group, a pack of wolves, or whatever collective noun you want to use for pirates, right? A plunder of pirates, or whatever you want to call them. They're flying in a group, and so they're flying in coordinated attacks, either as a formation or as a swarm or something, right? And you want to make sure that they all are behaving correctly on the same target, because they want to single out a target and attack at once. Remember that these are light armored rogue-like characters, rogue types, and it just takes 1 or 2 blasts, well placed and precise blasts from a defender, and that pirate's gone, right? So if there is a precise and accurate defender defending that miner, he can make relatively quick work of quite a few pirates quickly, you know? And a pirate generally doesn't stand a chance in a one-on-one direct confrontation with the defender. And so they have to use almost what they, you know what they call guerrilla tactics, right? So those are the kinds of ways that a small rebellion can take down a large oppressive force, right? So if you're thinking about something like there's this, okay, we'll use Star Wars as an example. Okay, so think about Star Wars and the Empire, right? So the Empire takes over, and the rebellion, the rebels, can't take them on one, right? They just can't. They don't have the numbers, they don't have the funding, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the training, they don't have any of those things. And they definitely don't have the artillery. They don't have the heavy machinery like the ATSTs or the AT-ATs or whatever other like ships and tanks and all those things. They don't have it. And so they have to employ other tactics, right? So guerrilla tactics, sneak attacks, and doing things that the Empire has not been trained to deal with. And similarly, the pirate has to do the same thing, right? So he's faster, he's lighter, and he's more maneuverable than a defender. And so they can get out of the way of the defender's aim and get out of range of the defender and then come back from a different angle, right? So they, again, like I said, they're like this wasp that can buzz around and start stinging from many directions, right? And if there are multiple of them, it makes things harder for the defender and for the mining vessel as well, right? By extension. So these kinds of coordinated attacks are important. And I think you can appreciate very quickly how very quickly this can break down into deeply, deeply complex systems, right? Where even basic formations and coordinations are really, really hard to program, which is why we need to get the foundations right. And that's what we're trying to do here, okay? And that's why it's like pattern transition and chute activation, laying the foundation and uncovering the missing or weak links early, right? Makes sense. And I agree 100% with that. So, okay, I agree with your path with your planned path. No, I agree with your plan. We'll just say with your plan. Let's begin with part 1 of your where to begin plan. What break this down even further if possible, and let's get to work. Are we doing step 1.2? Yes, you are now focusing on step 1.2, pattern transitions and correct activation of chute, from seek to chute, which is the perfect place to start for robust, intelligent AI behavior. Let's break this down even further. So, A, ensure the correct pattern transition logic from seek to chute. So, check seek completion. Under what specific conditions does the AI judge that it's time to stop seeking and start shooting? For example, is the distance to target less important than weapon range, or the line of sight is achieved, right? That kind of thing. And then emit a pattern switch signal. Does the seek behavior emit a clear, completed signal for the tactical layer or the NPC behavior manager? Yes, it does. We just have to check again and let Perplexity know. But it definitely does. I can remember distinctly that we do have this in place. And then step 3, tactical layer reaction. Does NPC behavior manager receive the signal and assign or activate the chute pattern with correct parameters, right? So target node, continuous mode, etc. And then that's part A. Now we've still got part B and C and D, right? So like I said, a boulder into rocks, rocks into stones, stones into pebbles, pebbles into smaller pebbles and smaller pebbles until you're done right down to the dust. And once you got to dust, you can't break it down further. Now you deal with each grain of dust as you would. So now I'm really getting sleepy. Okay, part B. So I'm going to go through all of these steps and breaking it down and all of these things. so that when it comes to the time of execution, we have everything written down and it's all there, and we can go back and look at it and see, oh, okay, we need to do this thing next. And I hope that you appreciate this aspect of things, right? That it's not just to waste your time, that I'm not just doing this so that I take up most of the time of the live stream talking and reading out exactly what Perplexity has written and all of these things, that it actually helps me and you understand exactly what needs to be done, so that when it comes to the time for doing it, we don't forget and have that so-called "where was I" moment, and you're like, oh no, I forgot what we were supposed to do. Why didn't I write it down? Oh wait, I did. Let's go back to Perplexity and read. So, okay. So part B. Ensure shoot activation function receives the right data. So, is the target node valid? Are parameters intact? And confirm that it has been activated, right? So, is the target node valid? Confirm that the tactical layer passes a valid target reference and not null, which is currently in the scene tree. And then, are parameters intact? So, is shooting mode continuous or single? Is shooting mode, range, and anything else required actually being sent to activate? And then confirm activation. Does activate in behavior shoot GD properly initialize? And is it set to start firing immediately if ready? Okay. And now part C is the debugging and diagnostic section. Add log or print statements, observe in the test scene. And part D, error handling. What is missing or invalid target handling? And pattern collision. So if the AI cannot transition between, because the target is lost, then emit a so-called failed signal and have the tactical layer assign a fallback. For example, return to seek or go to break. And in pattern collision, ensure only one pattern is ever active per agent at a time. Then where to start? Specific next steps. Review your seek behavior. Where does it decide it's time to shoot? Is this a signal? Is this a range or line of sight based attack check? And then make sure the completed signal from seek reaches your tactical layer. Review the code in NPC Behavior Manager that receives the seek completion and then calls shoots activate and verify parameter passing. Then add print or debugs to confirm this flow is working. And if anything is missing or buggy, paste that code here for hands-on troubleshooting. Would you like a checklist for items 1 to 3 above? Or do you want to show me your seek pattern code, your signal wiring, and your tactical layer transition logic for review? That's a good question. How much time do we have? We have about 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I think it would be helpful to add the code onto this thread. And then it has a context of what we already have. And what we don't. And then we can do a more targeted approach to solving this whole thing, right? By building on what we have and extending it and adding on the features that we don't have and need, and postponing the features that we don't have but don't need right away, and so on. You know, I am so tempted to just open those doors and not care about the noise, because I am yawning a lot now. Okay, let's give it the code. Let's do it. I'll give you the code. I'll give you the code you asked for, so we can identify what I have already done and what needs to be done. Either by extending the so-called done parts or building new features that are so-called untouched. Please give me a list of the files / scripts you want from me. These files should be the ones you think will inform you of the situation the best. Again, I don't want to have to give it all my scripts and scenes and things. I would prefer to have a very directed and surgical sampling of my code and scene files and so on. So that's why I told it be specific. Tell me exactly what you want, then I can give that to you. Like, you know, like a librarian almost. Here's the targeted list of files or scripts that most efficiently help me understand your seek to shoot pattern transitions, signal wiring, and tactical layer logic. So, proper priority files or scripts to share. I want the seek behavior script, the npc behavior manager.gd, behavior shoot.gd, enemy ship controller.gd, and any scene file or files or their node setups. Start with 1, 2, and 3. These are highest priority. If those don't clarify everything, we'll request parts of 4 and 5 as needed. Amazing. So now we have exactly an idea of what to share. So here we go. So here is the context you requested. Step 1 is behavior seek.gd. I fear we will basically only just do this and then we'll run out of time. Behavior seek is quite a large file. So let's do that. Copy it. And then put it down here. Okay. And then step 2 is the npc behavior manager. This one, copy everything, paste it all there. Then there's also step 3, which is behavior shoot.gd. Behavior shoot is this one. Okay. already partly shared, but if you've made recent changes or want to show the full script, then include it, especially the activate pattern completion logic. Then enemy ship controller, step 4, enemy ship controller.gd, that's this one here. Wait, enemy ship controller. Set target position. Test shoot behavior. Okay. And then any scene files or node setup. Let's go with this for now. I'll add in the scene files if needed. You can request them more specifically too, as that would help a lot. Thank you for sharing these scripts, these key scripts. Here is a clear assessment of the current state of your seek to shoot transitions, what you've already built, and where targeted next steps are needed. What's working? Seek behavior is working, the tactical layer is working, and the shoot behavior is working. And then within them, they've got different steps. We'll get to that. But first, where you are ready, your seek completes when in range. So it emits a completion signal. The tactical layer can use to trigger the shot. Shoot is modular and robust, handles its own entry or exit, and there are error states, and it has parameter flexibility. And then signal connections are defined, right? So behaviors signal completion to the tactical layer. Behaviors can signal their completion to the tactical layer. Okay, so a targeted next step. Work still needed. So let's go through the parts that are working in more detail, right? So seek behavior initializes with valid target data, calls behavior completed.emit with completed and target data when it gets within a fixed range, emits failed with reasons if it can't find a valid target. And the tactical layer listens for pattern assignments from the strategic layer, performs execute pattern, which calls activate behavior for assigned behavior, and then on completed or failed from individual behaviors, emits its own pattern signals and gets ready for the next pattern. And then in the shoot behavior, it's got an activate, it activates with rich parameters like continuous fire, target node, or whatever, and then it checks the validity of the target, the gun system, and other essentials. It has robust error handling, emits failed on missing data, handles line of sight, range, aiming, and calls trigger shot as expected, and signals behavior completion with behavior completed, right? So yeah, we've got all this done, which is nice. So when you are ready, so where are we ready? We are ready with those things. Now the targeted next steps, where work is still required. Right? Ensure signal flow for pattern changing. For pattern chaining, right? Confirm that when seek completes for a given agent, that your NPC behavior manager assigns and activates the shoot pattern, passing the correct target node from seek as the target for shoot. And then this typically means in the on behavior completed or in your strategic layer, you recognize that seek completed. You recognize seek completed, and then you call pattern assignment for shoot with the resolved target. What is there to do? If this isn't currently automatic, you could automate chaining using the ready for pattern signal, or customize this in the strategic layer. Populate or verify parameters passing between patterns, right? And then when activating shoot after seek, ensure you pass all necessary parameters like activate target node, continuous flag, etc. If seek returns only the position, you may need to convert it back to a node or maintain a reference through both patterns. Then scene testing. Run an in-engine test with an activate sequence. With an active sequence, so seek pattern assigned, reaches range, triggers the shoot pattern correctly with valid node reference. And then confirm with debug prints or logs that transitions occur as expected and AI agents do not stall between seek and shoot. So where to focus? Your structure is already modular and well designed for training behaviors. The most attention should be on the glue logic, right? Does seek completed reliably activate shoot with actual live target node? And the second most attention should be, does the tactical layer always maintain valid target references across pattern boundaries, like position versus node? Suggested immediate next action. Double check how or where your NPC behavior manager or upper system listens for seek completion and launches shoot. Paste or describe any gaps in parameter passing from seek to shoot. If you want hands-on help, share the relevant signal to pattern assignment code. And let me know if you want help wiring up the chaining logic, debugging a specific transition, or reviewing your pattern assignment on behavior completion code. If so, just paste the relevant signal handler or describe your flow. Okay, so that's that. We have our plan for moving forward with this step, and we've run out of time. So I would like to extend a very big thank you and shout out to Cubes. Your support means a lot. And for all the rest of you guys, please do check out coffee.com/mtkdev. The link is here at the bottom of the screen, and it is also in the description of every live stream video, right? Then also, so is the link for Discord. So go ahead and join the community. I hope to see you there soon. And until the next live stream, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your attention.